Hey everybody, I'm Mikey G, and today we'll be looking at the world of white. Now, white's all around us. A lot of things in nature are white, a lot of things that we manufacture are white. So what is white exactly? Well, what Wikipedia says is, white is a color, the perception of which is evoked by the light that stimulates all three types of color-sensitive cone cells in the human eye in nearly equal amounts and with high brightness compared to the surroundings. But in art supplies, if you look at a line of oil paints, acrylic paints, any kind of different medium, you're going to see that they try to sell you more than just one kind of white. There's 3, sometimes 6 or 7 different types of whites. But white is white, right? Well, that's what we're going to be taking a closer look at today. Is white really just one color, or are there actual differences that each of these whites do? And see if we can prove it. We came down to our local Jerrys Artarama store to see just how much white they had available. Just look at all these paints, and there's so much white. Here, iridescent white. Ooh, it's on sale. Right here alone, we got 14 different kinds of white. Well, here it's just snowing white. And even more white. Well, we've certainly proved that there's a lot of white things in our art supply store. But now I think it's time to go back to the studio and actually put the paints to the test. Today we're going to be working with the Charvin Extra Fine Oil Paints. I've laid out some cadmium red, some ultramarine blue, and some ivory black, and we're going to be mixing those in with our 4 different whites I have laid out here. We have a zinc white, a titanium white, a titanium zinc white, and a flake white hue. And what I want to see is when I mix each of these whites in with the colors, how they look, if they look any different or if they look the same. I'll be sure to mix in equal portions and see if there's any differences. Alright, so I'm going to lay down 5 equal parts, 1 as a control and 1 for each of the whites to be laid in. Alright, now we're going to mix them up and see how they look. Okay, so we have all of our colors mixed, and as you can see, we've got quite a variance of color here between one to the next. But let's take a closer look at that and see what paint does what and what some of the features and benefits of those changes are. So the first white we have here is the zinc white. Now, zinc white is very popular for glazing, scumbling, but it's not a good all-purpose white because it's a little bit more brittle than some of the other whites available. And one last thing to note about zinc white is it's one of the most slowing drying whites available. So for a longer opening working time, it will be a good white to use for that. Next we have our titanium white. Now titanium white will reflect 97.5% of all available light. It's the most opaque and it's the brightest white you can buy. And it is probably one of the most popular whites that most people use on a day-to-day basis for painting. Okay, next up is our titanium zinc white, and as you can guess, that's simply a combination of the titanium white and zinc white. It has some of the advantages of both without the drawbacks of either one on their own. You're going to have a less brittle paint, it's going to have some of the creaminess that you get from the zinc white, but still having some of the brightness and opacity, covering power of the titanium white. So that zinc white really makes a good all-purpose painting white. Okay, last up we have our flake white. Now flake white is probably one of the most historical whites used. This dates back to the Renaissance, the portrait painters. They all love this white because it's not as bright as the other ones. It has a more of a warmer tone to it. It's very good for portrait painting and covering large areas. But one of the great advantages of the flake white is how flexible it is. So for portrait painters or people that were covering large areas, they didn't have to worry as much about cracking because it was so flexible. Well, there you have it. We've tested 4 different types of white on 3 different colors, and you can see that there are differences between the mixing qualities of each of these whites. I hope that you give some of these new ones a try if you haven't in the past, because I think we went ahead and proved that there is a difference between one white and the next. So we'll see you again next time. Thanks.
Alright, here it is.
That's not what I wanted.